Hello everyone, welcome again to my channel. I hope you all are well. As I usually say, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on wherever you are watching me from. Right, today's video is a follow-on from the video I did about, I don't know how long ago now, but it's a follow-on from that video that has to do with safeguarding. Okay, so we're looking at the almighty safeguarding. Drum roll. Okay, let's be serious now. Okay. This is time to be serious. Okay, so we're looking at the different another aspect of safeguarding. Remember from that last video I did say that safeguarding is quite huge. Okay, there's a whole lot to cover in safeguarding, but I only did a little snippet of what sort of people need to be aware of, especially those who are not used to the UK system, things that they need to be aware of when they teach in a UK school. So today's video is a follow-on from that, and we're looking at another aspect of safeguarding. As I say, safeguarding is huge. Okay, it's something that needs a whole lot of time to it because there are different aspects to it. But we've looked at safeguarding in the classroom. Okay, we are also going to carry on with safeguarding in the classroom, but looking more at neglect. Okay, now some people think that neglect is not part of safeguarding. Okay, but if you sit down, think about it, you will see that it is actually another form of another area of safeguarding that one needs to be alert about, or one needs to know about. Okay, now when you talk about neglect, okay, we're going to look at neglect from two angles, right? You're going to look at neglect in the classroom and also neglect from a parent's perspective. So this video is not solely for only teachers. Please share these videos. Let's not forget the key thing, which I always forget in all of my videos. Please share, like, comment on my videos, and especially share this particular video because I have heard of stories, I have seen stories of people getting into trouble for this particular area, neglect, without even knowing what you're doing. You get into trouble. So this is not, as I said, not only for teachers, it's also to do with parents as well. So parents who are just coming in from overseas, parents who are not used to the UK system, parents who are looking to come into the UK. So these are things that you need to be aware of as a parent, so you don't get into trouble while you are here in the UK. And as I said, it's also going to cross across teaching as well, going to cut across teaching. Okay, so as a teacher, these are things that you need to be aware of in your classroom so that you don't also fall foul and break the rule as a teacher. Right, so what is neglect now? Okay, don't mind my scarf, please. I'm using to keep warm. It's quite cold. I put on my heating, but it's still quite cold, so I'm using to keep warm. So don't let my scarf distract you. Okay, so what is neglect? I'm going to be reading my notes. Okay, so neglect is a persistent failure to meet a child's basic physical and psychological needs. That's what neglect is. Persistent. Okay, so it doesn't mean one-off, it means continually failing to meet a child's psychological and physical needs. Okay, so this also can trigger safeguarding issues. Now, I've told you what persistent means. It's not something that you do one off. Okay, you forget to do one of this thing today, and then tomorrow you don't do it, and next tomorrow you do it. But it's continuously. So when you continuously do these things, okay, and then it begins to raise concern or worry as a teacher or as a parent or to others who are around you, and then you then get reported or so. So we've talked about the definition of neglect. All right, so what are the types of neglect? Right, there are different types of neglect. You have educational neglect. Okay, so this is an absence of stimulation. Okay, so when you have poor or no support around school, and you have attendance below 95%, and you have several exclusion and expulsion. So this is why I say this cuts across parents as well as teachers. As a parent, if your child is continually absent from school, this will raise eyebrow. As a teacher, I will be concerned, I will be worried why that child is continuously not being in school, or you have a very poor attendance. So as a teacher, if you notice something like that, it is your duty to raise alarm. When I mean raise alarm, I don't mean shouting around the whole school and running up and down. No, you have to raise this with your head teacher. Okay, so they can look into it, because it could be that there's a whole lot happening in that child's life, and that's the reason why they are not meeting school. Not persistently doing their homework. So week in, week out, the children are not doing their homework. Again, this could be a sign of neglect. So as a teacher, you have to be aware too, but they might be as an aftermath of something huge happening in that child's life. Now, just saying this brings memory to my mind of a particular mug that was given to me at the end of school. So the gift the children give. So one child gave me this mug, and the mug read, as a teacher, my roles and responsibility or my duties are this: I'm a police officer, I'm a social worker, I'm a teacher, I'm a mother, I'm a this and that and that and that. So as a teacher, you have quite a lot of roles, So it's not all about just standing there and teaching. You also have to watch and ensure that your children are safe. Okay, so if, for instance, you are keeping your homework record and you see that every week this child does not do their homework, then it is an issue that you have to then raise to your head teacher, so they can then pursue and see if there's anything else going on in the child's life that is not allowing them to do that. And as I said, this could also be a form of neglect. So parents, so when you think you are working around the clock and you don't have time to look to ensure that your children are doing their homework, you could be setting yourself a trap. Okay, so it's important that you are aware of that. Now, when they have poor stimulation for a child, the child comes to school and they are sleeping all the time, they are not interested in learning, they are not participating in what is going on, then all of this also could be pointing that there is something going on in the background that you need to be aware of as a teacher, and then you raise alarm or you speak to your head teacher to ensure that that child is safe. Then you have emotional needs. Okay, so you have emotional needs. So this is where a child has very little or no emotion. Okay, shows no emotion, or as a boy, when they say boys don't cry, well, sometimes, yes, boys naturally don't want to cry because they don't want to feel embarrassed or things like that. But when you see a child that is not very unresponsive emotionally, then that also would trigger some sort of alarm, some bells that then needs further investigation, because it could just mean that that child's emotional needs have not been met for a very long time, and then they become quite complacent in their emotions, and then they need to check what is going on. Because if a child shows no emotion, then there's obviously something going on in the background. Well, I'm not obvious, but some people are just like that. But for a child, yeah, I don't know. So it needs investigation. Okay, then you have medical. So if a child is continuously ill, every time medical appointment, every time in the hospital, again, that is another sign that there could be something going on. Maybe this child has long-standing illness that has not been pursued. And again, this will come across as neglect, because if your child has issues, health issues, and they're not being checked, they're not being dealt with, then it shows that you are neglecting the medical needs of the child. So therefore, that can also come across as some form of neglect. Then you have physical neglect. So you have homelessness, all of that, poor living conditions. Okay, so one thing that social workers do in this country is, if, for instance, you get into the social workers net, right, they will come to your house to check, to make sure that your children are living in a good environment. Okay, so because if not, if your child is living in their mess, the house is messed up, everything is untidy, everything is unkept, there's no proper living area, sleeping area for your child, all of these things, okay, it is neglect. Okay, you are neglecting the child's physical needs. You're neglecting and by doing that, you're also putting the child in harm's way, because then it's easy for them to get any disease, an infection, or whatever, and that is pure neglect. Okay, so they will come to check that your house is in order and that your house is neat, or else it could also be termed as neglect. Then you have supervision neglect. Okay, so when you face a failure to protect a child from harm. So if, for instance, the child has been kept in your care, and you don't protect that child from physical harm, or you're busy on your phone 24/7 and that child falls and breaks their arm in a very bad way, then that is neglect, because that child has been in your care and you should be looking after that child, and then they fell and broke their hand, then what were you doing at that point in time? It also can be termed as supervision neglect. So these are the forms of neglect that exist and that needs to be checked. Okay, now as I said, this cuts across teaching and across parenting. So as a parent, you also need to be aware of these things so that you don't fall foul and put yourself into a situation whereby it will be termed as you are neglecting your child.